right, so welcome everybody, and we're here today with John Weber and the Weber team from Barrie, Ontario. And we're going to talk about the trends in real estate in Barrie and just how the market's doing. And I want to welcome John. And John is an award-winning realtor and a team with LePage. He's top 2% nationally across Canada in 2022. He made the executive circle. He's lived in Barrie for over 30 years, I believe.
Yep, agreed.
And comes from a family of entrepreneurs. His father was the owner and started the company of Weber's Burgers on Highway 400. And as a youngster, John worked at the restaurant. When you were a kid, it must have been heady days then. You didn't know where things were going at that point in your life, I guess.
No, it was a lot of fun, though. It was a lot of fun working summers at the hamburger stand, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, because probably had all kinds of university kids coming through there at that time. And
and hockey stars, like literally TV stars would come through going to Muskoka. Gordon Sinclair, who nobody would know that is today, would come up in his Rolls Royce and have a hamburger on the way to Muskoka. There was a lot of celebrities that would stop in there too.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we sure like to stop in there on our way up north. And John's also a boater, and he does a lot of boating out of Lake Simcoe and out of Barrie, and
up to Aurelia by boat a lot. Yeah.
That's awesome. What a great summertime activity, right? Living and working on the water. So awesome. That's awesome. So John, how's the market doing in your area these days? The last time we talked was 2022. It was like a year ago, and I think you said the average months of inventory was less than 2 weeks.
It was. Basically, 21 and 22, we went through a time of close to no inventory, which seemed, you think that's an exaggeration, but really it wasn't that exaggerated. There was a very, very low amount of inventory, which of course, as we all know, the balance between supply and demand, the supply was so small, the demand got very, very intense, and the prices went through the roof. And that's all in the rearview mirror now. It's past. We're getting back to, I wouldn't say normal levels of inventory, because they're still below normal. And by normal, I mean 2019. They're not to those levels. They're not even to the 2020 levels. But they're slowly starting to come back up. But every month, every quarter, there's something new that's going on in the world, as we all know, whether it's the war in Ukraine, whatever it is, the China factor. There's a lot of things going on. And in most of the world, the interest rates, and in our world, the Bank of Canada rates, have made a lot of people, in my opinion, maybe put the brakes on any changes for a bit. And some people are really thinking, you know what? I'm not sure what our home is worth anymore. I'm not sure where things are going. Maybe we'll just sit on the sidelines. Right now, the Barrie market, and Barrie meaning Barrie, Aurelia, Oro, it's a little quiet. It's not. It hasn't gone to sleep, but it is quiet. And there's a lot of uncertainty. Buyers and sellers, I think, are struggling with a lot of what ifs.
Sure. You wanted to bring up the map of the area that you work in, John, and just give us an idea of kind of your real estate coverage area.
So looking at the map, we cover all of Innisfil. We kind of cut off at East Gwillimbury. So down, further than that, a little bit further down, a little bit north of that. Right at that where the Holland Marsh would be, right there.
Okay.
That's kind of our southern point.
Guilford Bay,
we cover all of Lake Simcoe up to and including Washago.
Okay.
We go all the way up to Washago, and then we go west over to Coldwater, Port Severn. I've done a little bit of work in Midland, but then coming south from Midland all the way down through Elmvale, Stayner. I was writing an offer for a house in Stayner last weekend.
Okay.
So it's a wide geographical area. It's quite wide. It's we don't go into Muskoka per se.
Okay.
But it's a large geographical coverage. Yeah.
Right. So so you were saying, do you think it's a buyer's market or a seller's market out there right now?
I think it's still tipping a little bit towards a seller's market because there's
Okay.
not a lot of inventory.
Right.
I don't think it's fair. I think it's inching towards a balanced market, but I
Okay.
wouldn't say in this region that it really is balanced yet.
Right.
Because there's limited inventory.
Right.
And there are interested buyers for sure. It's just the biggest struggle right now. And there's an old saying in real estate that buyers always know when the market has turned. Sellers don't want to buy into that too quickly.
Sure.
And there's a lot of sellers right now that still want outdated pricing. They want to sell their home for what it was worth last July or August. Those prices are gone. They don't exist anymore.
Sure.
And for that reason, some sellers are sort of holding off on listing.
Right.
And the truth is, and you and I both know, I mean,
Yeah.
the predictions, everything I'm reading for predictions for this year, for 23, there'll be a continued softening of prices.
Sure.
Not a huge decrease, but they will soften.
Yeah.
And it'll be a relatively fair market.
Sure.
And then things should start to firm up and sort of maybe get a little bit stronger in 24.
Right. Right.
But 23, as far as pricing goes, should be, reasonable for pricing as opposed to, there's no more bidding wars in this area. There's no more holding back offer dates,
Sure.
nothing like that at all.
Yeah. How long are houses lasting on the market these days?
Good question. Good question. I mean, the average days on market, I think, would be somewhere it can be up to 60 days, 70
Okay.
days.
Okay.
But that's not to say that if someone prices the home properly, really hits that sweet spot.
Right.
And we've had some big homes go on in our area lately, 1.2, 1.4 million. They've sold in 3 or 4 days.
Right.
It was a good quality home. It was well presented and it was priced fairly.
Right. How about waterfront properties? What are you seeing? Any trends in waterfront properties? Are they still in high demand or?
Yeah, in my opinion, in 15 years of business and always doing a couple of waterfronts a year, some years I've done up to 5 or 6 waterfronts. There's always a demand for waterfront. It's a different buyer.
Yeah.
Completely different buyer. There's always a demand for waterfront. There's not a lot of inventory of waterfront. There's one thing about COVID. COVID really, I think, put the focus on the value of family, the importance of being with family.
Sure.
And what better place to be with family than at a cottage on the lake.
Yeah.
So, waterfront inventory is low.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a couple of people that will be looking to sell some bigger ones, but I don't know if the demand will be there for, a $4 million waterfront.
Right. Right. So we were talking a few minutes ago, just before we got started here, just about the trend in real estate prices over the last couple of years. And you had a chart there. I don't know if you can show us the chart or just put it up on the camera maybe. And
not very formal, but yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I can email this to you.
Yeah.
But basically so for the average home in Barrie residential, and keep in mind, this is all homes from small townhomes to small condos to large, big mansions too. The average home in Barrie in January of 21 was $700,000. Then January of 22, it went up to $965,000.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Wow. And now, the end of December, the start of January 23, back down approximately $700,000.
Yeah.
So pricing is challenging. When I meet clients, they say, John, what would you list my home for?
Sure.
It definitely is a challenge because they've got these visions of these huge numbers. Like those numbers, they don't happen now.
Yeah.
But there are buyers and there are sellers, and the market is doing its thing. It's working.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So when it comes to baby boomers, and that's the age group, 58 to 76 years old now, approaching retirement. Some, a lot of us are still working. I don't know how you are, but I'm a baby boomer.
Yep.
What are the trends are you seeing for, baby boomers kind of smart sizing? They're not always downsizing. Sometimes they're getting bigger houses, but
you're right.
The trend is moving out of the city anyway. And what do you see your way?
A little bit more leisure based, to your point, getting out of the city, and some of that congestion, especially in this area. I mean, with what we talked about earlier on the map, the geographic area and all that water, water / recreation, enjoyment, kayaking, canoeing, boating, skiing, golfing. It's a very active lifestyle in this area. And they're not, in my opinion, they're not building enough communities that lend themselves to that. There are some projects. There's one in the Aurelia area where Lake Simcoe and Lake Couchiching join together. It's called the Narrows. And there's Orchard Point. There used to be a big marina there, Orchard Point Marina. They're building some more condos there, but again, might be 30 or 40 units as opposed to, 300.
Right.
And also there's a location up there, a facility called Sophie's Landing.
Right.
And that's always semi-popular. There's very few listings ever at Sophie's Landing.
Right.
And now when a listing does come up at Sophie's Landing, it gets snapped up pretty quickly.
Right.
There's also Bayshore Village, which is further around a little bit more towards Romera.
Yeah, Brecken. Brecken?
Yeah.
That way? Okay.
And again, it's a big development. It's been there for years, and that has its own lifestyle that it offers.
Yeah, my wife and I took a drive through there a couple of years ago, and it's a lot of waterfront and big old bungalows. And
yeah, there's a whole bunch of things there. It also lends itself. They have a large marina there for boaters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's lots of little things, but there's no new big projects on the go. If somebody said, is anybody developing something really designed for a certain, cohort of people that, want to not fully retire or semi-retire, but just still have an active life. We're short on some of that inventory. We are. Some people might say that in Barrie / Innisfil. That's why Friday Harbor is supposed to be about a little bit of, semi-retirement, fun, water-based. And Friday Harbor is very popular. Yeah. It is growing. They are adding actually large numbers of townhouses there over the next few years.
Yeah.
They're building a hotel there.
Yeah. Is that hotel open now, John? Or?
No, it's not open that I know of. They're still under construction.
Okay.
But, Friday Harbor has a ton of events. They do a lot over Christmas, Halloween, springtime. They have all kinds of concerts on during the summer. Yeah. They've got racing cars there on display in the summer. They've got racing boats in the water during the summer. There's a whole lifestyle thing to Friday Harbor. Yeah. And there's a lot of activity.
Yeah. How about cottages? If anybody's looking for a cottage, what did you find going on this last year with cottagers? Is there more inventory, less inventory? Is there,
I found there to be less inventory, again, because families are saying, no, we're not giving up the cottage, especially part of the, the whole COVID thing. We want to spend time together, especially if you weren't traveling or doing other things.
Right.
Cottages are always popular, and I think they're always kind of inching up. Sometimes they went crazy high. Sure. But again, everything kind of went out of control for a couple of years. They're balanced back down in relationship to what a normal home would be. Yeah. Everything came down a little bit too, but I mean, it's back to what I would say somewhat normal.
Sure. Where do you find the baby boomer crowd are coming from? Get a sense for that?
Just a lot from the GTA.
Yeah.
A lot from the GTA. Yeah. The other thing that we've noticed so much in the last 12 months is there's so much buying and selling in relationship to becoming grandparents.
Ah, okay.
So many people have said, John, we're buying, we're selling, all because grandchildren.
Right.
Yeah. And again, I think it's part of COVID. People have sort of reevaluated their lives. What's important to me? How many more years do I have? Sure. Well, I want to spend them next to those little special people.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So any predictions for 2023? You thought maybe kind of mid-year we'd see, a bit of more of a kind of a balance in the market?
Yeah, I think 23 is just going to be a little bit uneventful. It's not, it won't have any of the peaks and valleys that we've had for the last 2.5 years. I think it might be a little bit boring and dull, which would be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about that at all.
It was pretty rock and rolly there.
Yeah. Everybody can maybe have a little bit more enjoyment time on the weekend or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And by the end of 23 and going into 24, I think it might start to ramp up again a little bit, like some,
Sure.
appreciating prices.
Sure.
But a lot of people too, I mean, there's always, it's hard to generalize in my world, at least. You think, yeah, I think this, but also there'll be these other 10 things on the side that are happening. And one of the things that I think is going to be a big factor over the next 1, 2, 3 years, there's going to be a lot of people, there's a whole category of people that have never known a mortgage over 2%. And people sort of 38, 39 years old and younger have never known a mortgage on over 2%.
2%, yeah.
And you think, I've got some clients that have already called me and said, John, we have to sell in 23 because we renew in November of 23 our mortgage, and we know what the mortgage rate's going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But, for some people, it would be triple their previous interest rate.
Yeah.
That is going to cause some challenges for people.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be lots of different buying opportunities. Unfortunately, some people are simply going to have to sell because they won't be able to cover the mortgage.
Yeah.
And a lot of these younger couples, not their fault, not that they're guilty, but they also have 2 nice leased cars in the driveway.
Sure. Yeah.
Car payments, mortgage.
Yeah.
There's a breaking point.
Family responsibilities. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So there will be opportunities, and I think some of those people that need to sell will keep the prices a little bit in line.
Sure.
I don't see any big price increases in housing until maybe even the end of 24 going into 25.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very balanced, very reasonable.
Sure.
And I just think it'd be a fair market value.
Yeah. Sure.
As opposed to exaggerated and out of reality, which the last 3 years have been exaggerated and they haven't been realistic.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess we'll, so much of this depends on, the interest rates and if they hold them or, and, how things do across the world. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen, but if everything kind of goes in line with what the Bank of Canada is saying, and certainly certainly in Mississauga, the demand is there for real estate. People are still buying. It's just that, they can't buy as much of a home as they bought, in the past because of the higher interest rates. So, maybe instead of buying a detached, they're buying a semi, but it's still like you still need a house over your head, and the demand is there with certainly with the amount of immigration into the area, and just the demographics of millennials having children. So the demand is definitely out there, and it's just a case really of for a lot of people of what they can afford and what they're willing to spend. But that's shifted down a little bit, but it still seems to be like a pent up demand for real estate and for housing around here anyway. So.
Yeah, and one of the things we've noticed too lately, I mean, our condo market during, and when I say condo, the waterfront condos, there's a certain segment in Barrie, there's 6 different towers, and they're very, very nice condominium buildings, well done, large floor plans, like good quality waterfront condos. They were very popular and hit some record high prices, and now the price of those condos, they're down by 15 to 20%. Seriously, 20% off the high easily.
Wow.
So, and I mean, again, that's a buying opportunity. Not that there's a lot of them available. There might be 1 or 2 ever listed at a time. But nice buildings and great views. Great views.
Right. Just for interest, what's the population of Barrie now? And that's like the surrounding, the greater area.
For the city itself, they're saying it's right around the 150 mark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But there's lots going on in Midhurst, which is just outside of Barrie. I mean, to me, they blend together, but there is a separation. There's a lot of homes, single detached homes being built in Midhurst, not necessarily geared for, people downsizing or anything like that. But there is a lot of building, a lot of construction in this area. There's a lot of higher density being built. There's a lot of condos in the south end of Barrie, not near the water, mind you, or anything that way, but just high density condos by some of the big builders in town.
Right.
So there's all kinds of new product and builder product coming to the market, which will one day add to inventory through a resale.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good. All right, John. Well, thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights. And what's the best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants to search for properties up in
if you just Google John Weber Real Estate, I come up in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And just Google search John Weber Real Estate, Weber team, and it's 1B in Weber. And I'm happy to answer any calls or send me an email, or just my phone number is right there. When you Google it, it'll come up with my direct cell phone. Give me a shout, and I'm always happy to meet with people or answer any questions.
Awesome. Okay, great.
All righty.
Okay, thanks, John, for joining us, and appreciate that. And we'll see you next time.
Okay, take good care.
Bye.
Bye now.